is loyalty? The concept is often viewed as one of humanity's most admirable traits. Loyalty is associated with trust, commitment, reliability, and perseverance. Societies praise loyal friends, loyal family members, and loyal citizens because loyalty strengthens relationships and communities. However, loyalty becomes more complicated when it is directed toward institutions, corporations, brands, and political organizations. In modern society, loyalty is no longer confined to interpersonal relationships. Consumers demonstrate loyalty toward products, political parties, media organizations, and corporations with a level of devotion once reserved for family, religion, or nation. This raises an important question. When does loyalty stop being a virtue and become a mechanism of influence? Modern institutions increasingly rely on branding, advertising psychology, and identity-based marketing to cultivate loyalty that extends beyond rational decision-making. Through these methods, corporations, media organizations, and political entities encourage individuals to associate products and ideologies with personal identity, making consumers more likely to defend, promote, and purchase those products while discouraging critical examination. As a result, loyalty has become a valuable commodity that benefits institutions economically and politically while often limiting independent thought and informed decision-making. Now let's define loyalty. According to standard dictionary definitions, loyalty refers to steadfast devotion or faithfulness toward a person, cause, institution, or nation. Historically, loyalty functioned as a social necessity. Communities depended on mutual trust and cooperation for survival. Loyalty fostered stability and accountability because it was rooted in direct relationships and shared experiences. However, modern institutions differ significantly from traditional social relationships. This distinction is important because loyalty toward a person and loyalty toward a brand are fundamentally different relationships. And with that, we get the emergence of brand loyalty. The 20th century witnessed the rise of mass advertising and modern branding. Companies discovered that creating quality products was only one aspect of long-term success. Equally important was creating emotional attachments between consumers and products. Advertising has evolved beyond simply informing consumers about products. Instead, it began selling lifestyles, identities, and aspirations. Automobiles became symbols of freedom, clothing became symbols of status, technology became symbols of innovation, and food and beverage products became symbols of belonging and culture. As a result, consumers increasingly associate purchasing decisions with personal identity rather than practical utility. Marketing researchers frequently describe this phenomenon as self-brand connection, in which consumers integrate brands into their self-concept. The product is no longer merely something a person uses. The product becomes part of who the person believes they are. The psychology of identity-based consumption becomes human beings naturally seeking belonging and social acceptance. Psychological theories such as social identity theory suggests individuals define themselves through group membership. Historically, those groups included family, religion, nationality, and local communities. Modern marketing has adapted this tendency by encouraging consumers to join brand communities. Technology companies cultivated dedicated user cultures. Automobile manufacturers created lifestyle identities. Fashion brands promote exclusivity and status, while the entertainment franchises foster communities built around shared consumption. When individuals identify strongly with a brand, criticism of that brand may be perceived as criticism of the individual. This emotional attachment often reduces objective evaluation and increases defensive behavior. As a result, consumers frequently become voluntary advocates for corporations whose primary obligation remains profitability rather than consumer welfare. And that brings us to attention as a commodity. In the digital age, attention has become one of the world's most valuable economic resources. Social media platforms, search engines, streaming services, and news organizations compete aggressively for audience attention because attention can be converted into advertising revenue, user data, and influence. Unlike traditional products, many digital services are offered at little or no direct financial cost. Instead, platforms generate revenue through advertising systems that monetize user engagement. The longer the user remains engaged, the more valuable they become to advertisers. Consequently, many digital systems are designed to maximize engagement rather than promote accuracy, understanding, or well-being. This incentive structure rewards emotionally stimulating content, controversy, outrage, and constant consumption of information. And with that, we start manufacturing dissatisfaction. A significant portion of modern advertising relies upon creating perceived deficiencies. Consumers are frequently presented with messages suggesting they are incomplete, unsuccessful, unattractive, uninformed, or behind their peers. Products are then offered as solutions to these manufactured problems. This strategy does not necessarily require deception. Rather, it amplifies insecurities that already exist within society. The result is a cycle in which dissatisfaction fuels consumption, and consumption temporarily alleviates dissatisfaction before new deficiencies are introduced. Such cycles encourage continuous purchasing behavior while rarely addressing deeper sources of meaning, fulfillment, or personal development. This leads us into loyalty beyond commerce. The mechanisms used to cultivate brand loyalty increasingly appear within politics and media. Political campaigns utilize branding techniques, slogans, emotional appeals, and identity construction similar to commercial advertising. Media organizations often develop dedicated audiences whose loyalty extends beyond individual reporting. In both cases, loyalty may discourage critical evaluation because group identity becomes more important than objective assessment. Individuals may defend organizations despite evidence that contradicts their stated values or interests. This phenomenon demonstrates how loyalty can evolve from informed support into unquestioning allegiance, which leads to the counterargument. Supporters of branding and consumer culture may argue that loyalty reflects informed consumer choice. Consumers often remain loyal to companies because those companies consistently provide quality products and services. This argument contains some truth. Loyalty can emerge naturally from positive experiences and mutual trust. Furthermore, businesses provide valuable goods and services that improve quality of life. The problem is not loyalty itself, but when loyalty becomes detached from accountability and critical examination. Healthy loyalty is earned continuously, but blind loyalty persists regardless of evidence. So in conclusion, loyalty remains one of humanity's most important virtues. However, modern institutions increasingly seek to cultivate loyalty not through personal relationships, but through branding, psychological influence, and identity formation. Corporations, political organizations, media outlets, and digital platforms all compete for attention, allegiance, and consumption. In doing so, they often encourage individuals to attach personal identity to products, ideologies, and institutions. The result is a culture in which questioning may be interpreted as betrayal and consumption may be mistaken for participation. A healthy society requires more than loyalty. It requires skepticism, accountability, and the willingness to examine the institutions that seek our trust. The most important question is not whether people are loyal, but whether the objects of that loyalty continue to deserve it. Thank you for listening to Part 1 of Brand Loyalty. To catch more, like and subscribe.